First, we'll talk about Mercury,
the closest planet to the Sun.
Some interesting aspects of the planet Mercury is that it has an 88-day orbit. It rotates around the Sun every 59 days. It has no axial tilt, which means it has no seasons, unlike Earth. Its radius is around 2,500 kilometers across. The gravity is roughly half of Earth's at 3.7 meters per second square, and the temperature of the planet varies very harshly on each side. On the side facing the Sun, it could reach temperatures up to 427 degrees Celsius, whereas the side facing away from the Sun can reach temperatures as low as negative 173 degrees Celsius.
Only two spacecrafts have visited Mercury, Mariner 10 and Messenger. The next mission will launch in April 2018 and will land in 2024, and that is the BP Colombo. Mercury is the smallest terrestrial planet and closest to the Sun, and is the largest airless and rocky body in our solar system. One interesting fact is that the craters at the poles are in permanent shadow, so it's permanently cold. And comets brought water to it, which now has become water ice. The magnetic equator is 480 kilometers north of the geographic equator, and the mantle and crust are very thin. Scientists believe this is due to a giant collision with Venus 4.5 billion years ago. The planet is also rich in minerals that should not be there due to the heat, which are sulfur, chlorine, sodium, and potassium, and is poor in iron.
So one scientist used an equatorial mount setting circles to flush the planet from hiding place in the midday sky. Finally, in January 1882, he found bands and bright spots. As he looked at the planet through an eyepiece, he saw no change, which meant there was a slower rotation. Mercury on its axis turns like the moon. One side has a lasting day and the other night. Although Gordon Pettengill and Rolf Dice proved him wrong by finding that Mercury's rotation was actually 58.65 days.
Although Mercury is small, it is unusually dense for its size. This is as a result of its unusually large core, which within it has its magnetic field, which is altered off the equator and located toward more the North Pole.
Its magnetic field is top-heavy, and it's 3 times stronger in the North than the South Pole. And its metal core stretches and bends existing magnetic field lines, which induces an additional magnetic field. The plains cover 30% of its surface. Here are some interesting facts. It is the hottest and coldest planet in the solar system because of its volcanic crust and the ice craters that it has. Also, another fact is that the craters are named after artists. For example, Bach and Copeland.
So, Mercury's diameter is 40% of Earth's, and it is 5% of Earth's mass. Its core radius makes up 75% of the planet's in total radius, and the core's mass makes up 60% of the total mass. It has a thin atmosphere made up of helium, hydrogen, and oxygen. It has high amounts of metal for 3 reasons. The response of iron and silicate particles due to aerodynamic drag by nebular gas, and the process at late stage of planetary acceleration attributed to the preferential vaporization of silicates by radiation from hot nebula and removal by solar wind, and the silicates selectively were removed due to collision. The planes range from high reflectance red material to low reflectance blue material.
Second, we will look at Venus, which is the second planet closest to the Sun.
Its mass is 81.5% of Earth's. Its atmosphere is 90 times thicker than Earth's, and it reflects 75% of its sunlight. Also, its year is 224.7 Earth days, and its rotation is longer at 243 Earth days. Also, it's 108 million kilometers from the Sun. Its core is a liquid iron and nickel with a 6,000 kilometer diameter, and its crust is 50 kilometers thick, mostly made of silicate rocks, and it has a very weak magnetic field.
On Venus, sunlight hits the planet with enough energy to split molecules of water into separate oxygen and hydrogen atoms. There are more than 600 volcanoes on the surface of Venus. It is also known as Earth's evil twin. It was formed approximately 4.6 billion years ago, and the mantle makes up around 3,000 kilometers thick. The composition of the atmosphere of Venus is around 96.5% carbon dioxide, 3.5% nitrogen. There is an axis tilt of around 2.64 degrees, so the seasons are hardly noticeable on Venus.
Venus is a super greenhouse. Because of Venus's intense heat and high magnesium content, the ultramafic lava behaves like water would on Earth. 90% of the surface of Venus is covered in volcanic materials.
Due to Venus's thick clouds, it was once thought that below its atmosphere was a vast jungle filled with water and full of moisture. Venus's atmosphere is a very active one. A Hadley cell is present where warmer regions at the equator cause air to rise and flow toward the poles where it sinks and goes back to the equator, causing a giant convection current. This causes Venus's atmosphere to be very energetic, and storms and lightning are often to occur. The planet's name comes from the Roman goddess of love, and due to the planet's topography and geography, it may be able to tell us about our future and past of our planet. The surface temperature of Venus can reach upwards toward 864 degrees. One interesting fact about Venus is that it orbits in a retrograde rotation, meaning that instead of the sun rising in the east, it rises in the west. Also, when there's precipitation on Venus, instead of rain being water, it is sulfuric acid, and even before the droplets can hit the ground, they are evaporated. Recently, the ESA has found that Venus has an ozone layer approximately at 100 kilometers in altitude above the surface.
Venus has one relatively young crystal plate that covers its surface, and no tectonic plates. The very young age of the surface suggests that something must have destroyed the exterior and created a new crust. Researchers are confident that the event was a massive volcanic eruption about 600 million years ago. Mariner 2 in 1962 discovered surface temperatures must be extremely high, and like Uranus, it rotates in the opposite direction. Also, Soviet lander Venera 7 in 1970 survived only 23 minutes on the planet. NASA reports that we won't be able to send things like rovers because of the heat.
The Venus Express, launched in 2006, showed that Venus may be geologically active right now. It also shows the amount of hydrogen and deuterium in the atmosphere, and it suggests that Venus used to have a considerable amount of water in the atmosphere, which is mostly gone now, and it could have possibly had oceans similar to Earth's.
Venus is dominated by plains and lowlands. Also, it has 3 layers of clouds, starting from the lowest layer being very opaque to the top layer only being thin haze. The southern vortex mirrors the northern vortex on Venus. Also, deuterium is 150 times more enriched in Venus than Earth. Also, very interestingly, it has lost only 15 feet of water. And scientists are very puzzled by that because with the amount of CO2, it should have started off with much more water.